There's a strange kind of silence between two people who almost connected. Not a breakup, not rejection, just a vanishing, a quiet collapse of potential. It's the kind of emotional ghosting that doesn't leave a message, only a question. Why didn't it spark? Even though everything seemed perfect? Think back. You've been there. Maybe you said all the right things. Maybe you looked good, had good intentions, made them laugh. But something, some invisible frequency, never clicked. And they walked away with a polite smile, like someone closing a book halfway through and never picking it up again. Now here's the paradox. Attraction is not logical. It isn't built from data points, nice clothes, good job, shared interests. You can check every box and still be completely forgettable. Meanwhile, someone else can say one thing, look you once in the eyes, and burn themselves into your memory for years. Why? What if emotional attraction isn't about who you are on the surface, but about something much deeper, more ancient and even spiritual? What if attraction is a recognition, not of your achievements, not of your words, but of something hidden beneath? Ask yourself this. Why are we magnetically drawn to some people and completely indifferent to others, even when everything on paper says we should like them? Why do some conversations feel electric, even when nothing important is said? Why does your body lean in, your chest open, your breath soften around some people but not others? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. You don't choose emotional attraction with your mind. It chooses you, but it chooses based on signals you aren't even aware you're sending. Tiny cues, buried energies, unconscious truths. And this is the haunting part. You can't fake those signals. You can memorize pickup lines, master body language, dress well, and be charming. But if what you radiate doesn't hit the emotional core of the other person, if it doesn't speak directly to their nervous system, to their shadow, to their longing, you will always be nice, but never unforgettable. Now stop and think. What if emotional attraction isn't just chemistry, but a form of emotional truth resonance? A silent frequency, shaped by how deeply you know yourself, how grounded you are in your pain, how sincerely you express your inner world. This is why some people have a gravitational pull. They aren't perfect. They're not always the most attractive in the traditional sense, but they feel real. They speak with weight. They carry themselves like someone who has seen the fire and walked through it. They create emotional safety, not through words, but through presence. So here's the great question. What are the exact phases, moments, dynamics, or truths that cause this emotional frequency to activate in someone else? What turns a stranger into a magnet? What makes someone feel like they've met a mirror, a missing piece, a familiar soul? And if you could understand these phases, if you could recognize and cultivate them, how would it change the way you connect with others? How would it change you? Not in a manipulative way, not to get someone, but to become someone who naturally creates deep, powerful emotional bonds, without trying, without strategizing, simply by being aligned with what you actually are beneath the masks. Because here's the truth you've felt, but never quite said aloud. People don't fall for your smile. They fall for the way your presence makes them feel about themselves. And if your presence feels like truth, like safety, like mystery and meaning, all at once, if it feels like coming home, they won't forget you. So what are these phases? What happens, step by step, in the invisible world between two souls that turns curiosity into captivation? What lights the emotional fire? We're about to break it open, But be warned, this isn't about tricks or tactics. This is about stepping into a deeper, more real version of yourself. One that you may have forgotten. One that speaks a language more ancient than words. Let's dive into the first phase and uncover what most people never even realize they're missing. Ready? Phase 1. The mirror effect. I see me in you. You're standing across from someone. Maybe it's the first date. Maybe it's just a conversation. But something shifts. They lean in, not because of what you said, but because of what you reflected back. This is phase 1 of emotional attraction. The mirror effect. Attraction begins not when you impress someone, but when they feel seen in a way they've never quite experienced before. It's not about admiration. It's about recognition. You don't need to be their ideal. You just need to reflect a truth they've been secretly carrying. Think about it. Every person walks around with a world inside them that's rarely understood. Wounds they can't explain. Hopes they're embarrassed to admit. Questions they don't know how to ask. Then suddenly, someone enters their life and speaks in a way that echoes those inner things. It could be a tone, a way of listening, an unexpected vulnerability. Whatever it is, it whispers, "You're not alone." That's the first flicker of emotional attraction. Not because you're perfect, but because you reflected their inner world back to them with empathy, not judgment, curiosity, not analysis. But here's the catch. You can't fake this. To mirror someone else, you have to have looked deeply into yourself first. You can't create emotional resonance if you're still hiding from your own emotions. You can't give presence to someone else if your own identity is scattered, performative, or numb. The mirror effect begins with self-confrontation. The more you've explored your pain, your dreams, your contradictions, the more accurately you reflect others. So when you meet someone and you're able to say, "That sounds incredibly hard. I've felt something like that. You seem like someone who's been carrying more than they show. You remind me of a part of myself I forgot I loved." You ignite the first phase of emotional magnetism. Phase 2. The emotional spiral. I feel more alive with you. If the mirror effect makes someone feel seen, the second phase makes them feel awakened. This is the emotional spiral. It's the moment the emotional tone shifts from understanding to activation. It's not just "I feel safe with you," but "I feel more alive around you." This doesn't come from constant validation or excitement. It comes from emotional expansion. You make them feel feelings they've buried or dulled. You invite intensity but not chaos. You stir their soul, not just their body. You might say something that breaks through their emotional numbness. What do you dream about when no one's around? What's the one thing you're afraid to say, but wish someone could hear without flinching? You don't have to hold it all together. I see the effort it takes. These questions, this presence, spins them into an internal spiral. Not confusion, not fear. You've learned the phases. You've felt them stir something in your memory, your body, your soul. But here's the terrifying truth. Most people will never experience those 3 phases. Not because they're unworthy, but because something deep within them won't allow it. Something blocks the mirror, dulls the emotional spiral, and seals off the unspoken pact. And it lives beneath the surface of nearly every relationship. It's silent, invisible, cultural, inherited. It's the reason you keep ending up with people who should love you, but can't. The reason conversations feel shallow no matter how much you share. The reason you feel unseen, even when someone is looking right at you. So what is it? The hidden force sabotaging emotional attraction is this. the fear of being fully perceived. You may crave connection, but connection is dangerous because true emotional intimacy means exposure. It means being seen not just in your beauty, but in your chaos, your contradictions, your unfinishedness. And we've been taught, from a very young age, that being fully seen is the same as being rejected. Enter the mask. Psychologist Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to survive the expectations of the world. It's the polished version of you, the agreeable one, the successful one, the funny one, the attractive one. The persona is not evil. It's necessary. But it becomes a prison when you start mistaking it for who you really are. Because under that mask lives the part of you that is messy, ashamed, afraid, unsure. The part that's been wounded and still limps. That part is called the shadow. And here's where things get profound. According to Jung, the shadow is not just the dark side of your personality. It's also the source of your emotional power, your magnetism, your depth, your creative fire, your capacity to feel and to make others feel. In other words, if you avoid your shadow, you also block your ability to create emotional attraction. Think about it. You can't reflect someone's truth if you've denied your own. You can't create an emotional spiral if you're emotionally numb. You can't hold someone's story if you've buried your own. This is why so many people feel invisible in dating. Even when they look great, say the right things, and do everything right, because they're interacting from the mask, not the marrow. They're afraid to show who they are behind the performance. And here's where modern culture makes it worse. Our society rewards performance, not presence. From childhood, we're taught that love is earned through achievement. Be agreeable, and you'll be liked. Be pretty, and you'll be desired. Be successful, and you'll be respected. But here's the psychological trap. Everything you do to earn love also trains your nervous system to believe that unfiltered love is unsafe. So you enter relationships as a role, not a reality. And emotional attraction dies in the presence of roles. Why? Because no one wants to fall in love with a character in a play. They want to feel the tremble in your voice, the truth in your silence, the rawness that says, "I'm here, no mask, no script." But showing up like that? It requires the thing most people never practice. Radical emotional exposure. That means owning your shame, naming your longing, sitting in the space where you might be rejected, and staying open anyway. It's vulnerability, yes, but deeper than that, it's existential honesty. This is what philosophers like Nietzsche and Sartre were pointing toward. That human connection is a confrontation with the self. It's not about finding the one. It's about facing the parts of you that you've been avoiding and letting them be seen without apology. Because only when you accept your full self can someone else truly recognize you. And this leads us to a deeper psychological root. Most people are addicted to emotional control. They don't want real connection. They want predictable validation. They chase people who won't challenge them. They hide their darkness. They curate their personalities like brands, all because they're terrified of the chaos that emotional intimacy brings. But here's the paradox. The very thing they're avoiding, emotional chaos, is the only space where love can truly grow. Because love is not built in control. It's built in surrender. Now, pause. What does this mean for you? It means that if you want to unlock the 3 phases of emotional attraction in your life, you must unlearn the survival strategies that kept you safe, but made you emotionally invisible. You must go where most never go, into the heart of your shame, into the story beneath your ego, into the emotional truths that scare you to speak aloud. Because when you own those truths, without needing them to be fixed or approved, you create a frequency others feel in their nervous system. And that is what draws people to you. Not perfection, not performance, but a kind of grounded, present wholeness. And make no mistake, people can feel the difference. They may not know why, but they'll feel more themselves around you. More open, more curious, more alive. That's attraction. So here's the final question of this section. Are you living from your persona or your presence? Because emotional attraction doesn't begin with how others see you. It begins with what you're willing to see in yourself. In the next section, we'll expose how this hidden fear doesn't just affect individual relationships, it reshapes entire cultures. You'll see how it infiltrates social media, dating apps, even our collective idea of love itself. And more importantly, you'll understand why this pattern is so hard to break unless you uncover the final, unseen consequence. Ready to go further down the spiral? We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. You've seen how emotional attraction really works and what blocks it. But there's one layer deeper. What if this isn't just your problem? What if the very culture you live in, your apps, your conversations, your media trains you to suppress emotional truth? The consequences of that aren't just personal. They're structural, collective, and they affect every relationship you will ever have. Let's begin here. You open a dating app, swipe, smile, swipe. Like, every profile is curated. Every bio is optimized. Every photo is filtered. You're not meeting a person. You're meeting their marketing team. You know this. But still, you play along. Because that's the system. And deep down, you believe that if you show too much, if you're too honest, too strange, too intense, you'll be rejected before you even begin. Now imagine what this does to the nervous system. You begin treating emotional connection like a branding exercise. Authenticity becomes a liability. Vulnerability becomes risky. Depth becomes a burden. So what happens? You shrink. You shrink your expression, your weirdness, your longing. You stop saying things like, I miss you and I don't know why. Or sometimes I'm afraid I'll never be truly seen. You stop asking, what do you ache for? Or who were you before the world told you who to be? And when you shrink, your relationships become shallow echoes of what they could be. Here's the paradox. In a culture obsessed with connection, most people are emotionally starving. They're surrounded by followers, comments, matches, notifications, and yet their inner world feels untouched. That's the unseen consequence, a society that confuses visibility for intimacy. That thinks being liked is the same as being loved. That trades truth for performance and wonders why nothing lasts. Psychologist Erich Fromm warned us about this in The Art of Loving. Modern man is alienated from himself, from his fellow men, and from nature. He has become an automaton, feels powerless and isolated. He was right. And nowhere is this more visible than in how we seek love. We pursue people not because we feel known, but because they fit our story. We measure attraction not by emotional resonance, but by attention. We chase validation, not connection. But attention fades, stories break, and validation is never enough. That's why so many people go from relationship to relationship, feeling more empty each time, because they were never truly seen and never truly showed up. Let's go deeper. The brain is wired for emotional coherence. We are biologically drawn to people who match our unconscious emotional blueprint. That blueprint is shaped by childhood. If you learned early on that your emotions were too much, or that you had to perform to be loved, you will attract and be attracted to people who reinforce that wound. You'll crave love, but chase people who can't give it. You'll sabotage intimacy the moment it starts to feel real. And worst of all, you won't even know why. This is how emotional amnesia becomes a societal norm. We forget what it feels like to be held. We forget what it means to speak without rehearsing. We forget the sound of our real voice, the one buried beneath the noise. And in that forgetting, we become ghosts to ourselves. This is not just a personal crisis. It's a spiritual one, because if you lose touch with your emotional truth, you lose touch with your humanity. And when you lose your humanity, you can't form bonds. You only form contracts, arrangements, agreements that mimic love but lack soul. You know this already. You've had conversations where everything made sense, but nothing felt right. You've said "I love you" and felt an eerie hollowness behind the words. You've held someone at night and still felt unspeakably alone. That is the cost of emotional disconnection. And here's where it becomes deadly. You start to believe that this is all love is. You convince yourself that real connection is a fantasy, that no one truly sees anyone, that emotional depth is just poetry and delusion. So you settle. You lower your expectations. You stop bringing your full self. You choose safety over truth. And the more you do that, the more your spirit atrophies. But there's another consequence, deeper still. You begin to reject people who could connect with you. Why? Because their emotional openness threatens the version of yourself you've constructed to survive. Someone says, "I see you," and you recoil, not because it's wrong, but because it's too right, too intimate, too close. You ghost. You push them away. You say they're too intense or too emotional. But really it's your body saying, "I don't feel safe being seen yet." And that's okay. But it's not where your story has to end. Because buried beneath all the masks and habits is a deep primal memory. The memory of being known. And that memory is what keeps you searching, scrolling, hoping, even after heartbreak, even after years of numbness. Because you know somewhere inside that real emotional attraction is possible. It's rare, but it's real. And when it happens, it doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like recognition, like an ache that suddenly makes sense, like home. So here's the final truth of this section. Emotional attraction is not built. It's remembered. It's what's left when the noise stops, when the masks drop, when two people show up, not as performers, but as pilgrims, seeking not perfection, but presence. And the moment that happens, everything changes. Because now you're not just connecting, you're awakening. In the final section, we'll return to the center of the storm. You'll see the ultimate truth, the final realization, that will forever change the way you seek and sustain emotional attraction. It's not a tactic. It's a shift in being. And once you understand it, you'll stop chasing connection. You'll start becoming it. You don't attract from fear. You attract from fullness, from groundedness, from presence, from an energy that says, "This is who I am. I don't need you to stay. But if you do, you will meet the real me." That's the moment people fall in love. Not with your stories, but with your stillness. Because stillness is rare, and in stillness, the truth speaks. This is the final phase beyond the mirror, the spiral, and the pact. This is the anchor. When you become the anchor, others feel like they can rest. Their walls drop. Their breath slows. Their hearts remember how to open. And the wildest part? You don't have to do anything. You just have to be. Be present. Be real. Be congruent. The rest unfolds naturally. Because emotional attraction is not about pursuit. It's about recognition. Two souls, stripped of pretense, meeting in the sacred middle. And when that happens, nothing is the same. Because you don't just find love. You become it. Now ask yourself, what have I been doing to be loved instead of simply being known? Where have I been performing when I could have been present? What part of me have I been hiding that is actually the key to connection? You don't need to change who you are. You need to return to who you are beneath the masks. And when you do, the mirror will reflect. The spiral will begin. The pact will form. The anchor will hold. And you will no longer feel like you're chasing love. Because love will be drawn to you. Naturally. Deeply. Permanently. That is the power of emotional truth. If this woke something up in you, share it. Comment with your thoughts. Rewatch the parts that made your chest tighten. And above all, remember yourself. Because the person who's been waiting to be seen is you. And once you see you, the whole world starts to too.